If you're thinking of selling your home here in Dallas, Texas, the question you're probably asking is, how much does it actually cost to sell a home? Or put another way, how much money will get wired into your account once you close the sale of your property? So in today's video, we're gonna cover just that. We're gonna dive into the spreadsheet and the numbers, and don't worry, if you're not a numbers person, I got the spreadsheet for you. You can actually download it using the link in the description and follow right along. So most importantly on today's video, I'm also going to share with you how you can maximize the sales price of your home, which will in turn maximize those net proceeds. And of course, we'll talk about how you could save some money on the sale of your home. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right into the seller's estimated net sheet spreadsheet that I've prepared for you for your sale of your home here in Dallas, Texas. All right, so a couple things I really want you to know. Number one, you can follow along using the spreadsheet that you've downloaded if you want to do that. Number two, please only put values into the yellow highlighted cells. I've set up this spreadsheet for you with formulas so that when you plug in the numbers, everything will calculate for you appropriately. Now, if you screw it up and put something somewhere else or mess up a formula, don't worry about it. You can always download a fresh copy. And number three, and this is super important, I want to put my ex-lawyer hat on and give you the disclaimer that this is just for informational purposes. When you actually meet with us to talk about selling your home, we will prepare a custom one of these for you, depending upon your situation, where you are, and everything that goes into the sale of your home. In addition, when you get under contract to sell your home, the escrow and title company will prepare one of these for you and estimate all of the numbers accurately depending upon, again, where you are, the closing date, and all of that good stuff. So this is a good example, but it will not be your final estimated net sheet. And with that, let's go ahead and dive right in. So the first number, the most important number, is the projected sales price of your home. Now, this is not as easy as it sounds. So I want to share with you that in all my 20 years of experience, homes do not sell for a set price, meaning just because your neighbor's home sold for a price and it's very similar, or just because a website tells you your home is worth something, that does not mean that that is what your home is worth. In fact, data and studies have shown that homes can sell for as much as 10% higher or 10% lower in a given range, depending upon how the entire process is handled by either your realtor or by yourself if you choose to sell on your own. Later in the video, I'll also talk about how you can maximize that selling price because of how important it is. But for now, let's go ahead and throw in a number here. $750,000 we will use as our example for our home sale here in Dallas, Texas. Now you'll notice that a bunch of the numbers changed. Don't worry about that for now. We're going to go ahead and put things through. The next number that is very, very important is your loan payoff, or payoff of your loans if you have loans. If you're fortunate enough not to have any loans on the property, great, just go ahead and put a zero there. If you have loans on the property, you can actually find your payoff on your last mortgage statement. It's going to be close enough. It's not going to be precise. Or you can call your mortgage company and ask for a payoff. Again, when you get into escrow and title, they will prepare that. They will get the actual payoff for you. One other thing to keep in mind here on the loan payoff is that mortgages are paid in arrears, meaning on the first of the month, you actually pay your mortgage for the month before. So if you close in the middle of the month or whenever you close, you have to pay for that portion of the month that you own the home through escrow. And that is important because that is not something you'll pay out of pocket outside. It'll get deducted. Escrow will pay off your loan and then transfer title. So let's just say hypothetically here, you have a loan of $400,000 on the property. That would be $40,000. We need one extra zero. That would be $400,000 on your property. So that gets paid out during escrow. That's not necessarily a selling cost or selling expense in the traditional sense, but you got to account for it because it is going to deduct from your net. Okay, next up we have property taxes. Now, property taxes can get tricky. I've made it super easy. You only have to know a couple of things that you can plug into the spreadsheet. Number one is your total annual property taxes. Now again, property taxes, just like loans, are paid in arrears. So if you know what last year's taxes were, you can put those in here, and your annual taxes will be on your property tax bill, or you can find them on the county assessor website typically. If not, we can find those for you when we do get together to talk about selling your home. But you have to know those annuals. So let's just say, for example, last year's taxes were $10,000. The next thing you have to know is how many months of this year you have occupied the home. And the reason that's important is you as the seller are responsible for paying all the property taxes up through the closing date. So right now we're in May. To make things super easy, let's just say that we're gonna close at the end of May. That would mean that we've owned the home, or you've owned the home, for 5 months. Let me make sure that's correct. January, February, March, April, May. Yes, correct. 5 months. So we're gonna plug 5 in here. And what this is gonna do is this is gonna calculate the prorated property taxes. I have one caveat on this, and that is that it is using last year's taxes to make the proration. Of course, that may not be the case. Your property taxes this year may be higher, they may be the same, they may be lower. I really can't account for that here, and that's why this is just an estimate. When you get into escrow, the title company, escrow company will actually prepare one of these using the current tax rate. So that'll be taken care of there. Okay, next up is our brokerage commissions. All right, so one thing I really want to talk about on this video, since we've gotten to it, is realtor commissions. Obviously, it's a hot topic. It's been in the news and there's been litigation about it. If you've been following along, of course, on the buyer agent side, I know we're talking about selling a home and we're talking about listings, but it's still a hot topic. And I will tell you that a lot of people, when they're thinking of selling their home, they may think, hey, I want to save on realtor commission. And as we're looking at it on the spreadsheet here, as you can see, it's a pretty big number. So let's talk about it. So realtor commissions, in essence, are an expense when you're going to sell your home. And as you can see here on the spreadsheet, they're on the expense side of the equation. And the percentages vary, of course. You know, they're not fixed by law, they're negotiable and all of that good stuff. But when you look at it, let's just say, for argument's sake, that realtor commissions are somewhere between 3 and 6% of the total purchase price when you look at it. So the flip side of that I really want you to think about is that your net proceeds, minus all the expenses that we're going to talk about here, represent like 93 to 96% of the sales price. So when you look at it that way, wouldn't the obvious question be, hey, how do I maximize the 93 to 96% and increase that number rather than trying to decrease the realtor commission? Now you could say, hey, I want to do both, right? I want to sell my house on my own and I want to get the highest price possible. Well, while that's an option and it's possible, the data actually says that it typically doesn't work out that way. So what I'm here to say is that you should be looking at ways, and I'm going to talk about them on this video, on how to maximize your sales price. Because if you can increase your sales price by 10%, and again, the data shows us that homes sell within a range. It could be 10% down, it could be 10% up, depending upon how your home is marketed, how your realtor is able to negotiate that deal, and how you're able to get through the escrow process. And one of the things that I will share with you, being in the industry for over 20 years and being an attorney before that, I believe that negotiation is actually one of the key strengths that you should be looking for in the real estate broker that you hire. And by the way, shameless plug, of course, I would love to demonstrate that for you. And so if that's something that interests you, give us a call or email or text or book a consultation, whatever is most convenient for you. And all of those links are down in that description. So the goal should really be to maximize that selling price, because again, if you can increase that to that high level of 10% up, well, even if you save 0.5% or 1% on your commission, but you sacrifice 10% in net proceeds on the high end of the sale, then obviously it's not worth it. So there's definitely a lot to talk about with realtor commission. Like I said, it's a very hot topic, and if you do decide to use a realtor, then I definitely hope that we are in that conversation and one of your options. All right, let's get back into diving into these numbers so that you can see exactly how much it costs to sell your home, but more importantly, from my perspective, how you can increase your net proceeds. And towards the end, we will cover the ways that you can maximize your sales price. All right, so again, we're gonna put some numbers in here. Brokerage commissions are not set by law, they're not fixed. And by the way, if you choose not to use a broker, then you would put different numbers in here. But for our example, let's go ahead and put 3% in as the listing broker commission. And for the buyer broker commission, let's put 3% in as well. However, I wanted to, of course, highlight the fact that you may have heard there's been some recent lawsuits with respect to buyer broker commissions and some settlements that have happened. What's going to happen in 2024, so depending on when you're watching this video, they actually just push the date back, but at some point, what's going to happen is that the buyer broker commission is going to get taken out of the multiple listing service as an offer of compensation. The way it worked before is that you and I would meet and agree to sell your home, and then we would make an offer of compensation in the MLS to the other side. It's not going to work that way anymore. That's going to be removed. But what is still going to happen is that buyer brokers are still going to get paid one way or another. That is not going to go away. Contrary to what you may have heard in the news and sensationalism and all this kind of stuff, the process will pretty much be the same, meaning the buyer broker is still going to get paid. They'll either get paid from the seller through escrow like we're talking about. That may have to mean that the purchase price gets adjusted. Maybe the buyer agent or the buyer actually contributes some of that. But one way or another, buyer agents will still get paid. So I'm going to leave that in here for now. If that changes and I'm completely wrong and everything goes haywire, then we'll have to change that. But for now, we're going to go ahead and put that in. So as you'll see, a lot of these things will now get calculated. The next line, and again, this is a white cell, not a yellow cell, so don't mess with it, is the buyer's title policy. Now, when you go to sell a home, there are actually two title policies that are purchased. The first policy is the lender's policy for the buyer's lender if they are getting a loan, and the buyer typically pays for that. The second title policy is what's known as the owner's title policy. That is what you as the seller will pay for the owner, for the new owner, the buyer, to make sure that if there are any title defects, they have title insurance. Now, this is a formula that I've put in here. It's just a general one. Again, your actual number might be higher or lower. That's the fee for that. And then the title and escrow company fees are what we pay the title and escrow companies to do the transaction for you. So to get all the money in, pay out everything that needs to be paid out, and then to wire you the proceeds, which we want to maximize, of course, and we will talk about in just a second. So the next couple of things are HOA transfer fee, homeowners association. If you have a homeowners association, sometimes they will charge you a nominal amount to transfer. It could be between $250 and $1,000. Sometimes that's split between the parties. If you have no HOA, this would be zero. So we're just going to assume here you have no HOA. The next item is something that not a lot of people talk about, but I think it is actually critical that you know this up front as an expense. And that is credit for repairs. And what I mean by this is when you go under contract to sell your home, what's going to happen is the buyer's going to do an inspection. And they may come back to you and say, hey, Mr. Seller, we have damage here, there's an issue over here, and I want you to fix it. And that happens a lot. So one of the things I always tell my clients is if you budget for it up front, then it's not a big deal. If you get hit with it off guard because no one told you, then it becomes a big deal. So I always like to budget a certain amount for credit for repairs. Now, it depends on the age of your house. If you've already done an inspection, which I do recommend, and that'll be one of the things I talk about in just a bit, and you already know what you need to fix and you decide to fix it, then you could put zero here. But on a $750,000 house, what I would probably budget, is somewhere between $2,500 and $7,500 for repairs. Now, your actual repairs could be way less, they could be way more, but it just gives you something as a placeholder to understand that you may have to give a credit for repairs. So I'm going to put $2,500 here just so we have that. Now, when we do that, what it shows us is it shows us our total selling expenses. This does not include, of course, the loan payoff. And at the bottom, at the end of the day, it shows us the amount that's going to be wired into our account, into your account, I should say. I keep saying our, but the money's all yours. So your estimated net proceeds in this case, $293,383. And that's the way that this spreadsheet works. So go ahead, if you haven't already, download your copy of the spreadsheet, start plugging your numbers in so that you can see exactly how much you are going to net at the end of the day. But wait, there's more. Don't go anywhere, because really what I want to share with you now is how you can increase your net proceeds at the end of the day. So that number, the $293,000 and change, how do we get that higher? How do we make that higher for you? And what a lot of people wrongly focus on is the expense side. So a lot of people will say, how do I minimize the expenses? Well, if you look at the spreadsheet, the easiest place to go, because it's the biggest number, you can't change your loan payoff unless you pay it off. The title and escrow company fees are set. So where do most people go? If you guessed realtor commissions, you would be correct. And what I will tell you is that in a lot of cases, people are right. Hey, if you can eliminate, in this case, $22,500 on each side, one or both of those, that's a big number. And so if you can get rid of that, that is great. However, what I will also say is that that is missing sometimes the big picture. And the big picture, when you look back on this spreadsheet, is that the biggest number on here is what? The sales price. That is the largest number on this entire sheet. And if you can, instead of focusing on decreasing expenses, increase your income by way more, then your ultimate net proceeds will be much higher. And here's what I mean by that. The brokerage commissions in this example are 6%. The projected sales price, if you can increase that by 5 or 10%, you're gonna be making much more money. If you look at this example again, and what I'm gonna show you here is very interesting. So your net proceeds right now is $293,383. Let's just say hypothetically that you were able to remove the brokerage commissions, both of them. You sell the house on your own, okay? But you end up selling the house for 10% less. So 10% less than $750 would be $675. Watch what happens. Your number just went down, okay? So it went down because you were focused on the expense side. Let's go back to where we had it. So it was 3 and 3, and this was $750. Instead, if you're able to increase that price, then you will actually net way more money. So that begs the question, how do we increase our ultimate sales price? There's been a lot of data and a lot of studies shown, as I mentioned earlier in the video, that the sales price of your home can actually fluctuate by up to 10% up or down. So what makes it change, right? It's a really interesting question. And what makes it change is the way that the entire home sale process is handled. Starting with the way your home is prepared for sale. That has a huge impact. You know, if it needs to be staged, if it needs some repairs or paint or something to give it that awesome curb appeal like you see on those TV shows, right? And you don't need to do this stuff, but the ultimate thing is if you do some of these things, you may get way more money for your home. Now, one of the things that we do when we meet with home sellers just like you is we prepare a customized presentation to show you, hey, if you did X, here's how much you could expect as a return. Now, obviously nothing's guaranteed, but we're gonna show you exactly what you could do to get more money for the sale of your home or just maximize the chances of selling it for top dollar. The next thing that matters is how your home is priced. And believe it or not, the list price of your home is not actually the final selling price. The list price of your home, the goal of that is to attract the most interest and to attract the highest number of offers so that you could sell the house for the highest price. So the way that your house is priced and the strategy that's used for that is critical and very, very important. There have been so many instances where I have priced homes and then sold them for much higher, or priced them above the market, above everyone else in the neighborhood, and then sold them because of the way they were prepared and everything that went into that process. The number 3 factor that is critical is negotiation, how good your real estate broker is at negotiating the deal. Now, I pride myself on the fact that, hey, I went to law school, went to business school, I've negotiated my entire career, and that is definitely a strength of mine. And so having a skilled negotiator working for you is critical when you go to sell a home, because there are so many negotiations that happen. You know, starting from when a buyer's agent first comes and tours the home, how it's presented to them, you know, when a buyer agent decides to make an offer, how that discussion is handled, all the way through to escrow and title, you know, how everything's handled during that process, all the negotiations that happen there, repairs and all of these kinds of things. So the way that that whole process is handled will definitely impact your final selling price. And if you want to maximize that, then again, reach out. I would love to chat with you. My team would love to chat with you about getting your home sold for top dollar in the Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas area. And by the way, when you do sell your home for top dollar, if you want to move to one of the 5 richest areas in Dallas, or you just want to see what they look like, then check out this video right over here.